Welcome you all to the course on Gender Studies. This is the 7th episode in this series. Let me tell you the 3 objectives that I have framed for this episode on Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. The first objective is to explain the significance of the title. The second objective is to unfold the different context into which male and female genius operates. The third objective is to educate the students about the distinction between the reality and the fiction. Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own is written in 1929. It focuses on unequal treatment practiced on women who sought education and also attempted to suggest alternative to marriage and motherhood. Let me come to the title, A Room of One's Own. Here the room stands for space or privacy. So if woman wants to become a writer, all she needs is to have a space or privacy. It is in privacy where the creativity flourishes. Literature is a work of creativity. It requires lot of leisure and contemplation. The leisure and contemplation can be acquired only through a particular space which is given. Therefore, the room stands for space or privacy. Another important theme that pervades all through the lecture is money. So financial support is also expected, or financial autonomy is expected for a woman to become progressive or to survive even. So the two aspects, money and privacy, or money and space, are the two mandatory things expected by women. So let me tell you the summary and analysis of the work A Room of One's Own. Chapter, it is the third chapter in the book called A Room of One's Own. Actually, it was given as a series of lecture on women and fiction, but later it was converted into a book. And in this narration, she says, why women are poorer than men. She decides to investigate this question, particularly with reference to the Elizabethan England, where she could find no women writers at all in the literary period. So for example, if you can take W.H. Hudson or any works for that matter, you can simply come across no women writers at all. So even in Elizabethan England, when I say Elizabethan England, you can readily say that it's Shakespeare, Bacon. But no woman writer comes to our mind. The problem is the state of mind could not flourish in the particular period, or the living condition was not very much supportive for women to flourish. So it was not the right ground for women to have any creative outputs. That is what is the claim of Virginia Woolf. So why women are poorer than men? This is what is the question she wants to trace answer for this question. and Elizabethan England, there were no women writers at all in the fertile literary period. It was considered to be the golden period. In that golden period, no women writers were found. So she finds a deep connection between living condition and creative works. So she reads a history book and finds that women had few rights in the era. The particular reason for not finding any great literary genius from women's side is that they had very limited or few rights in the era. Despite having strong personalities, especially in works of art, they had only few rights. So the narrator finds no material about middle-class women in the history book. There is no reference about the middle-class women in the history book. So one bishop comment that no woman could equal the genius of Shakespeare. She takes this comment very seriously. No woman could equal the genius of Shakespeare. Suddenly her thought turns to Shakespeare. Why Shakespeare became so popular? Why not a female Shakespeare could be found in that period? So she imagines what would have happened had Shakespeare had an equal gifted sister. So it's an imaginary story. And she imagines a gifted sister named Judith. Actually, Judith is the name of the daughter of Shakespeare, but here she uses the name Judith as a gifted sister or an imaginary sister of Shakespeare. Let us imagine that Shakespeare has a sister called Judith. So she outlines the possible course of Shakespeare's life. So she makes a comparison between the course of life of Shakespeare as well as the course of life of Judith. In fact, to say the course of life of a man and course of life of a woman in the particular period, Elizabethan period. What would have happened to this dichotomy, these two? First, she begins with Shakespeare's life. Shakespeare might have attended a grammar school, as we learn from the history. He married and well off, and he was given an opportunity to work at a theatre in London, and later he became an actor, and he started meeting and conversing and communicating with theatre people and became a stage expert and became a manager and so on. He flourished and became a popular dramatist and now have become, and he had a world renown. His sister Judith, however, was not able to attend school as Shakespeare did. Even the grammar school was denied to the girl. Her family discouraged her from studying on her own. She was married against her will as a teenager and ran away to London. The men at a theatre denied her the chance to work and learn the craft. So she was not given a chance to learn the art. Finally, she was impregnated by a theatrical man. Instead of giving a chance, the theatre man had given a child to her. So impregnated by a theatrical man. And finally, she committed suicide. How tragic the end was. See, the living condition was such that Shakespeare could have flourished as a great dramatist. But the gifted sister, the imagined sister Judith, would have not achieved what Shakespeare had achieved, simply because she was a female. The living condition did not allow a female to attend school, study of her own. And she was very much forced and restricted in her family, so she decided to move away from the family and ran away to London. And she wanted to get a financial support and became autonomous. Therefore, she approached a theatre and denied a chance. Therefore, she could not learn the craft, though she was a gifted sister. And finally, instead of giving a chance, she was impregnated by a theatrical man, and finally, it caused her to commit suicide. So this was the fatal end of the sister Judith, as Virginia Woolf imagined the sister. So this is how the narrator believes such a female genius would have fared in Shakespeare's time. So female genius could not have flourished in Shakespeare's time. However, she agrees with the bishop that no woman of the time would have had such genius. For genius like Shakespeare's is not born among laboring, uneducated, servile people. So she ironically says that, yes, I agree that no woman would have achieved the genius of Shakespeare, because Shakespeare was not born among laboring, uneducated and servile people. He did not belong to the particular class. Therefore, he did not have the struggle that the girl Judith had undergone. Nevertheless, some kind of genius must have existed among women then, as it exists among the working class, although it never translated to paper. Maybe genius like Shakespeare might have prevailed at the period, but they had never translated into paper. That is, they were not published. Even if a woman surmounted various obstacles and wrote something, it would have been anonymous. Even if she had published anything, it would have become anonymous. Her name could not be published in the book, either anonymous or never published at all. So these are the two states of women who lived in the Elizabethan period. The narrator questions what state of mind is most amenable to creativity. She moves next to the state of mind. So female genius to state of mind. So what is the state of mind amenable to creativity? She finds that creating a work of art is extraordinarily difficult. So creativity is not an easy job. It's an extraordinarily difficult one. Privacy and money are scarce. The world is generally indifferent to whether or not someone writes. She finds that creating a work of art is extraordinarily difficult. Privacy and money are scarce. The world is generally indifferent to whether or not someone writes. So writers are not properly recognized. The world is often indifferent, that is, show no feelings towards whether someone writes or not. Privacy and money are the two criteria which are often scanty or which are often limited to women. For women in the past, the conditions were even harsher, because most of the women writers were seen indifferently, and men actively opposed their creativity, because creativity was not the ground of women. Therefore, this indifference and opposing female creativity caused the budding female writers the unfavorable circumstance or environment where they did not dare to become writers, even though they had the genius and the state of mind. The narrator believes this male discouragement accords with the masculine desire to retain the status of superiority. Why female writers were not encouraged? At least given some space. Because it was a masculine desire to retain the status of superiority. If they wanted to possess the place of or status of superiority, there must be some people who must be considered as inferior. Because there is dichotomy. If someone is inferior, then only you can feel that you are superior. So this is the hypothesis. So this patriarchal mentality suppressed the female genius. Unfortunately, genius is often the most susceptible to the opinions of others. So genius depends on the opinions of others. She believes that the mind of the artist must be incandescent, like Shakespeare's. So the mind of the artist must be incandescent. The word incandescent means bright, shining, glowing, like Shakespeare's, without any obstacles. பிரைட்டாக அந்த லைட் எரியணும்னா அதுக்கு ரெண்டு விஷயம் வேணும். ஒன்று மணி, இன்னொன்று ப்ரைவசி. மணியும் ப்ரைவசியும் திரியும் எண்ணெயும் மாதிரி. அது இருந்தால் தான் அந்த லைட்டுக்கு ஒரு ஒளி கிடைக்க வாய்ப்புண்டு. She argues that the reason we know so little about Shakespeare's mind is because his work filters out his personal grudges and spites and antipathies. His absence of personal protest makes his work free and unimpeded. So to sum up, Virginia Woolf uses her fictional powers in describing the plight of Shakespeare's sister. She first details the factors that aided Shakespeare's natural genius: his early education, his freedom to leave his wife for London, his ready employment in the theatrical world, his ability to earn money for himself, his opportunity to explore other walks of life, his lack of familial responsibility. But Judith is victimized by a number of socio-economic factors that are lack of education, discouragement from reading and writing, absence of privacy, lack of employment opportunities in the artistic world, the burden of children. The narrator again cites the looking glass relationship, that is, reflective relationship between men and women. Men rely on women's supposed inferiority to enlarge themselves. As I told you before, if there is someone who is inferior to us, then only we will feel superior. Therefore, the someone is very much needed to us to show ourselves or show off ourselves superior. So men rely on women's supposed inferiority to enlarge themselves. So beyond the socio-economic factors, there are some additional obstacles of discouragement and disdain from the patriarchal society. So these obstacles are considered to be poisonous. So what ultimately can remedy the situation or improve the state of mind and make certain ground for the flourishing of female genius are the two aspects. One is money and another one is personal independence, that is privacy. So money and space foster freedom of thought is the ultimate idea behind this essay. So money and space foster freedom of thought. With this note, let me wind up this episode on Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. Thank you so much.